Hello and welcome to this new video in our VBA curriculum. In the previous video, we learned how to use for next loop and do while loop. In this video, we will be learning some of the other looping functions in VBA such as for each loop and the do until loop. Let us first look at the for each loop. The for each loop is very similar to the for next loop. This loop runs through every object within a set of objects. For example, it can run through a range of cells within a worksheet, given worksheets within a workbook, etc. Remember, from our earlier video on objects, in VBA, a cell is an object, a range of cells is an object, a worksheet is an object, and finally, an Excel workbook is also an object. Let us understand the for each loop, which uses a different criteria for each cell range in a given cell range. Let us go to the Visual Basic Editor. On the VBA project window, right-click and insert a new module. Here, we will write the new code and understand it subsequently. Write sub for each loop. Then, define the variables that we will be using. Write dim, cell as range, range 1 as range 2 as range, and range 3 as range. We will now prescribe specific values in our active sheet to these ranges. Write set range 1 equal to range C4 to I20, set range 2 equal to C4 to I7, and set range 3 equal to range C10 to I20. Let us now start the for each loop code. Write for each cell in range 1 dot font dot bold equal to true, range 2 dot font dot size equal to 20, and range 3 dot font dot color equal to VB red. In the end, write next cell. Let us now try to understand this code. We have defined the variables cell, range 1, range 2 and range 3 as different ranges that we will be using in our for each loop code. We want different statements to be executed for each cell that is present in these ranges. Range 1 is the range over which we have written all our numbers, that is cells C4 to I20. This is where we want our first statement to be executed. Range 2 is the range of cells from C4 to I7, which is where we want our second statement to be executed. Range 3 is the range of cells from C10 to I20, which is where we want our third statement to be executed. Let us now look at the for each loop code. We have given the condition that for each cell that falls in this range, make the font bold. The second statement to be executed, if the for each condition is true, is make all the cells in range 2, which is a subset of range 1, bigger in size. We are increasing the font size to 20. For each cell in range 1, change the font color of all the cells in range 3. That is cells C10 to I20. We want the font color to change to red. In VBA, format colors are written as the color name with the prefix VB. Finally, we write the command next cell, which takes our looping variable cell to its next possible value. Let us now go back to our Excel screen and insert a form controls button from the insert option on the developer tab to run this macro. Assign the macro we just created to this button. We can also rename the button as for each loop. Click on this button to run the macro. We can see that the first statement has been executed for each cell in the range C4 to I20, and all the values have become bold. The second statement has been executed for cells C4 to I7, which have now become of the font size 20. Finally, the third statement is executed for all the cells C10 to I20, which have now turned red. Hence, our for each loop macro is working as desired. Let us now look at another type of loop called the do until loop. This loop is similar to the do while loop. This loop repeatedly executes a code until a pre-specified condition becomes true. Hence, it can be seen to be the opposite of the do while loop, which is executed while the specified condition is true. The do until loop is executed while the specified condition is false. Let us understand the do until loop to calculate the square root of all the cells in a given column until the first cell with a negative value occurs. Go to the Visual Basic editor. Let us start writing a new macro for this loop. Let us name it do until loop. We will define a variable I as an integer by writing dim I as an integer and initialize the value of I as 1. Let us start the do until loop code now. Write do until cells I, 1 dot value is less than 0. Therefore, the statements in this loop will be executed until this statement is false, that is, till the values in cells I, 1 are greater than or equal to 0. The statement to be executed if this condition is false is cells I, dot value equal to cells I, 1 dot value raised to the power 1 by 2, I equal to I plus 1. Loop. Let us understand this syntax. In the first line, we have started our macro by giving it this name. Then we have defined I as an integer and then initialized its value as 1. As you can see in the command henceforth, I is going to be the row number, hence the value of I cannot be less than 1. This is the do until loop. The command says that until this condition becomes true, do the statements written in the loop. So the moment the first value in column A becomes less than 0, the loop will break and this statement will not be performed further for any cell. Till then, keep finding the square root of all the cells in column 1. As soon as you encounter a negative number, stop finding the square root. This is quite obvious as we cannot obtain real roots of a negative number. These two code lines work very similar to the do while loop, which enable the code to keep running by incrementing the value of the looping variable by 1 every time. Let us now go to the Excel view. Let us enter a few numbers in column A: 2, 4, 16, 25, 64, 144, 49, -32, 9. These are the cells for which the condition will be evaluated. Let us insert a form controls button and assign the do until macro to it. We can rename the button to do until loop. Click on the button to run the macro. We see that we have obtained the square roots of all the positive numbers. As soon as the first negative number is reached, the loop breaks and the statement is not performed for any cell henceforth. Let us change the values to 4, 4, 2, 25, 64, 144, 49, -32, 9 and insert a few more numbers. Run the macro again and we see that we obtain the square roots of all positive numbers till the first negative number in cell A8 is reached. Post this, we do not obtain the square root of any number as the loop breaks here. This is how we can make use of the for each loop and the do until loop to perform iterative tasks. Thank you for watching this video.